On PM Express tonight, a big conversation that has ensued over the last 48 hours since the president appointed 3 new members to the Electoral Commission. The questions around our constitutional desire to guarantee the EC's neutrality has come up, and civil society organizations have spoken in the wake of the appointments, but also the NDC in particular has voiced some concerns. We need to ask the question tonight: does the partisan affiliation of members of the Electoral Commission matter? We're asking this because it has come up before. Since Afarijan, post-Afarijan really, each of the commissioners that have been appointed, issues have been raised about suspected or sometimes overt partisan affiliations by the political parties and some of the members even, but particularly the appointments that were done and confirmed with the swearing in of the president of these individuals by the president of these individuals a couple of days ago, for the first time in a long time, has brought in civil society organizations to conversation who say it is time to take a second look at the mode of appointments. So let's get through to why this has become an issue now, because now it is not only speculation. People are now beginning to produce some evidence to suggest that at least one of the individuals appointed is overtly partisan. Well, these are the 3 members who were recently sworn in by the president to the Electoral Commission, and I'll go through each of them very shortly. Now, Dr. Peter Apiahene is the key individual around which a controversy have revolved, because we now know from those who are close to him, from pictures we've seen, from videos that we've watched, and audio clips when he was, before now, very active in the New Patriotic Party in the Bono region, to be very specific. But if you look at his background, he definitely qualifies according to the Constitution, and also his background and work that he's done, because he used to be an assistant professor with over 10 years working experience in the computer science industry and academic institutions. He's currently the head of the Department of the Science and Informatics at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. And I must tell you, as part of our research, I have spoken to him before on PM Express in the heat of the pandemic, because he had done some research in that area. And we thought we should invite him then in that capacity as an expert who's done some research to share his thoughts in that area. So there is no doubt that academically he has a track record. The issue that has been raised is the establishment of the fact that he used to be a patron of TESCON at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. Now, the NDC in particular and CDD had made the point that overt political affiliation and activism in the past raises fundamental questions, not necessarily constitutional questions, but questions about perception that it's very critical when you're going into an election with stakes that high, right? And so that it's been established. He's talking to multiple people who know him, and the videos that we've seen is made as a TESCON. And TESCON, by the way, is the NPP's, the governing party's youth wing. You find them at the tertiary institutions across the country. Is the party's vehicle for mobilizing youthful student support for its political and partisan causes. And so he used to be a TESCON patron. And then this is a picture that I'm pretty sure, possibly if you follow this, you would have seen circulated by those who knew him and had worked with him, and sometimes even the NDC who wanted to prove the point. And this was in the early 2021 January. I'm saying January because what we did was to do a reverse search just to be sure that this picture is authentic. And we'll tell you, we also used it. We also use forensic analytical tools just to analyze. So we want to be sure that this has not been doctored. It hasn't been, because it was generated by MPP activists just after the party won a second term, when people were campaigning for party stalwarts and activists to be giving a hearing when it comes to the Bono regional minister considerations. And if you do a reverse search of this picture, you will find in January of 2021 a lot of MPP activists, particularly in the Bono region, who, had taken sides, as far as these 6 people are concerned. Some of them were campaigning for him actively and sharing this picture and talking about his contribution to the party in the region, and they were urging that the president should consider him because of the work that he's done at the TESCON level and in the community as far as the MPP's progress is concerned. And so that's what we established there, and this picture proves the point for many who had looked at it. And just to make the point, so we put this through the forensic software, and this tells you whether or not this picture has been doctored and is fake or not, and it shows that the chances of this is what we call the error level analysis, looking at the error levels to check, to give you a good sense of whether the picture has been faked. It hasn't been faked, and as the multiple sources have said. And then you come to Reverend Ikwa Boateng. Many of you possibly would have heard of her on Asase Radio, but also, doing her work in the ministry. But importantly, she comes with some pedigree when it comes to the Electoral Commission, right? Because she used to be a member of the United States Trade Advisory Committee to Africa, but also the Advisory Committee of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. So that is important. So she's done some work there. There hasn't been any particular concern about her appointment because, as I say, if you look at her pedigree and coming to this, she has some pedigree coming into this conversation and going on to the Electoral Commission's, as a member of the commission. I know some people have raised issues, but it's hard to pin anything on her. And the record speaks for itself. An advisory committee member of the EC already, and so why not a member? And the president believes she deserves to be there. And then there's Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani. And again, we've seen, people have gone to dig into her background. Who is she married to? Is the person she's married to linked to the MPP? And many are already speculating a lot about, her affiliations and connections and who she's related to that have links in the MPP. But on the face of it, you see her pedigree. She's a banker with close to 2 decades. She's a senior remittance officer at the ADB. She is a member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. And so she comes to that. Now, one of the things you need to note, though, is a constitutional provision that specifies what you need to qualify to be an Electoral Commission member, commissioner, or a member of the Electoral Commission. And all of them, they qualify. They qualify because in the appointment of this, it has to go through the Council of State, must advise if the president says he's done, and the president says they approved their nomination. So there's no constitutional question around this. And this is the point that I wanted to make to you. As far as constitutional provisions concerned, a chairperson, 2 chairpersons, and 4 members. And that's why they have been appointed. But the Constitution is very clear as to what you require to be there. And it simply says you cannot be a member or on the Electoral Commission if you do not qualify to be a member of Parliament, right? And so that is a key point. You can be there, and if you can, unless he is qualified to be elected as a member of Parliament. And that's a constitutional provision. And so you have to go back to what the constitutional provision says about being a member of Parliament and apply it to all of them. And when you do the check, you will see that there isn't, you can't go and fight this in court and win. But remember, the elections is about integrity. It's also about neutrality. It is also about questions about fairness and whether you're biased or not, and what the people perceive that to be, because that's what fuels the tension that we see going into elections. So the CDD's argument, for example, is if you have somebody like that who has an overt political history, affiliation with one particular political party, then all of a sudden you're setting up the EC to be in conflict with the opposition party. And that, and Mr. Brampa, the program manager at CDD, makes the point that it is in the interest of, ensuring that the process, it's seen to be fair, that appointment is reconsidered. And we'll come to the conversation shortly. But the president made a very important point. Apart from this quote, the president says, it must as if the president knew this will come up. And he made a point, very instructive. I'll get my guests to chip in on that when I sit down. And he said that elections are not at all about the individuals who are on the commission. It's not at all about the chairperson, the deputy chairpersons, and the members. It's not about them. He says it's about the people who cast the ballot. It's not about the counting. It's not about those who sort out the ballot papers. And so, it's just not an issue, in essence, for the president, because it is a case of the voter and your exercising of your franchise, and not necessarily about the individuals, regardless of whether they are colored or not. It is a case of you going there and casting your ballot. That's the most important thing. I'll get my panelists to chip in. It's a bigger conversation than just this one. Tonight, the former President John Dramani Mahama had actually proposed now on the back of this controversy that if he comes into power, if he gets elected, he has proposed tonight, just a short while ago at the national briefing, that he will amend the constitutional provision and make the appointments to the Electoral Commission subject to parliamentary approval. And he believes that is his way of fixing the challenge over the years that we've seen anytime somebody is appointed to the Electoral Commission. We'll ask my guests whether they believe that is a way forward, subjecting our appointments to the Electoral Commission to parliamentary approval. And that, architecture itself will be constitutional and one that we need to look at. We'll come back and have a good conversation on this. Stay with me. Alex Egbefia is with the NDC. You know him, former minister under the John Mahama administration, Minister of Health. He's a director, NDC International Relations Directorate. Also, Henry Nana Boakye, Nana B, you know him. He's the national organizer of the New Patriotic Party. Both gentlemen joins me via Zoom. Dr. Asa Asante is a political scientist. He's a senior lecturer with the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana Political Science Department. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time here on PM Express. And I guess I would like to start with you, Mrs. Egbefia. Just a short while ago, your flag bearer aspirant and former president, John Mahama, was speaking at an event at UPSA, and he commented on this. He obviously condemns it and then says the solution to the problem is to amendment of the Constitution to make the EC appointments subject to parliamentary approval. You believe that, and we've illustrated this already, so there's no need to go back there, but if you may, that because of the one of the individual's known previous affiliations raises issues. What about the argument that there's nothing unconstitutional about it, and the president has just simply discharged his prerogative?
Good evening, Evans, and good evening to my co-panelists as well. I think that it's so obvious, I don't even think it needs to be debated. It's clear that in a situation like this, it's imperative that partisan colors for certain positions in this country should not be overtly or cannot be overtly shown to have been demonstrated in the past. Because it means that on every decision that person is involved in, it will be scrutinized 10, 15, 20 times more than it should be, because there's already a fear and a belief that that person doesn't approach it in a fair manner or a neutral position. And that, whether right or wrong, is the perception that is created by allowing somebody who is clearly overtly partisan, but is coming into a position of a referee to actually hold such an office. I think it's so obvious that I don't know why it keeps being done. It has the ability to threaten our very democracy. Elections in Africa are some of the most tense periods in the democratic dispensation of countries. And any step you take that is going to heighten that tension is not advisable within the African context. It was done with Dr. Bosman Asare. And when statements such as the NDC is a threat to Ghana's democracy from a referee, it shows clearly that we, as a political party, do not trust him to be dealing with matters pertaining to a game of this nature, if I can call it a game. And therefore, to bring in another person at this stage to join him and others is a bit unfortunate. It sends out a message that the president does not intend to have a level playing field. Tells us that perhaps the Council of State, who are complicit in this, should be a little bit stronger. And I would go a step further in saying that the constitutional review must look at how the composition and the powers of the Council of State should be used. Because if they are going to be simply a rubber stamp, then there's no point in them being there in their existence. This is so obvious, it's so clear. I don't even know why we are even debating it. He should not be allowed to do.
Alex, stay with me. And then Abache, you've heard the complaints of the NDC. I know you've had some time to reflect on this. What's the position that you articulate now? Sorry, Nana, please unmute for me.
Evans, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hello, Evans.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. Good evening, and good evening to my co-panelists. Let me first of all make this fundamental statement that I have been National Youth Organizer for the New Patriotic Party for 4 years. I am now the National Organizer for the New Patriotic Party. The said nominee or the appointed person, is it Dr. Apiahene, Evans, is it Dr. Apiahene?
Yes, Dr. Peter Apiahene, yes.
Apiahene. He has never been a TESCON patron. We have a list of TESCON patrons, and the same chorus was sung by the NDC. Very unfortunate. And then my senior, Alex, is again repeating it. I recall that when Dr. Bosman Asare was appointed, I was then the National Youth Organizer, and I've been strong party activist all these years. And I've worked with the youth base of our party all these years. The only times I heard of Dr. Bosman Asare is when you call him into your studios and then he will make his views and comments on matters of national character, right? So I recall that I mentioned that I don't know Dr. Bosman Asare to be a TESCON patron, yet still the NDC tried so hard to hang it around his neck. And they are repeating the same thing here. The said person who's been appointed has never been a TESCON patron. And I'm even surprised that you, Evans, you've run a certain commentary and you've concluded already. Look, when you come into our books, we have a TESCON rules and regulations, and we have procedures and how one can be a TESCON patron. And you have already established in your studios that the person is a TESCON patron. And I find it very weird and very unfortunate. He has never been a TESCON patron, and I have been National Youth Organizer for 4 years. And I'm saying this on authority. So for me, it is I mean, this whole editorial you just did, Evans, is very unfair, because I don't know how you came and how you concluded that he is a TESCON patron.
So let me tell you then.
He has never been a TESCON.
Let me tell you then. I mean, remember that we will definitely not do this if we haven't double-checked and triple-checked. We've spoken to people who had worked with him, family relatives.
And I'm saying that your checks are wrong.
Just a second. So it is the word of the multiple of people, including relatives of his, who we've spoken to, very, very close relatives who we've spoken to. And
who is that relative? You cannot just throw it around.
Just a second.
You know what? I'm telling you that.
Just a second. Because you said, if you may, I'll allow you all the time to, and just to establish that. And beyond that, the videos that, in terms of his affiliation to the party and his activism, it is undoubted in the Bono region. I'm not sure he himself would doubt his activism in the party in the Bono region, because there is a lot of evidence online and in the community about the work that he's done, and it's all over the web actually. If you do the forensic work and speak to people, so that is where this is coming from. It is really checked and double checked.
So that is what I'm saying, Evans. You are wrong for you to have said that you can conclude that somebody is a TESCON patron. We have processes. He is never in our books as a TESCON patron. I mean, you can say that, yes, again, my church that I've run, he's been invited by students. He has affiliation with some students who are TESCON. It doesn't mean that he's a TESCON patron, but that's what I'm saying. On your platform, you have categorically stated that he's a TESCON patron, and I'm telling you that you are wrong. So the fact that you've made some contacts close to people and then say that maybe he has some affiliations with some members of TESCON does not make him a TESCON patron. And that is what I'm pointing out to you, that the editorial you just ran is quite unfair because he's not a TESCON patron. And I used to be National Youth Organizer, and his name is never in our books as a TESCON patron. That is why I was also referencing the fact that when Dr. Bosman Asare was appointed, similar chorus was sung that he was a TESCON patron on University of Ghana campus. And again, I was a National Youth Organizer then, and I told people that he has never been a TESCON patron.
Well, we don't know about Boxman Asare, but on this, I don't dispute, and I will not go back and forth on this. But what we've done is what we've done. Multiple sources have said. You've just said that based on your checks, he was invited by TESCON. I mean, I'm interested in that. I mean, because I think the bigger conversation we are having is about people with known political affiliations and overt activism in the party being appointed today. And you said that he was appointed. Please clarify that for me. That he was associated with the TESCON, and he was invited to participate in an event.
I have had a lot. Yeah, I have had. No, it happens. Both TESCON and Kane. I mean, they can invite a lecturer who has expertise on a particular subject matter. In this case, we know his expertise. Right? It doesn't make him a TESCON patron. And TESCON is a body of students. They can invite him on a particular topic. It doesn't make him a TESCON patron. For that, I have cross-checked. But what I'm saying is that, and I think that you need to take this from me because I'm speaking on authority, that his name is not in our books as a TESCON patron. That is it. And I brought in the issue of Dr. Bosman Asare because when my senior Alex was making his comment, he inserted that bit that it happened during Dr. Bosman Asare's appointment and that he mentioned it, that he was a TESCON patron and all of that. That is why I brought that in. So I just wanted to make this fundamentally clear. I mean, moving on, what I think is important is that we are discussing the neutrality of the Electoral Commission. And I don't think that it can compromise in any way. They have sets of rules. They have their guidelines. They have laws regulating their practices. And the way the architecture of the Constitution is such that it gives the president that authority to appoint under Chapter 7 of the Constitution. Article 44, 43, 44, 45 talks of the Electoral Commission. Now, and the qualification criteria is also spelled out clearly, that to be appointed as a member of the Electoral Commission, you should qualify to be a member of Parliament. Is also clear. That is also noted down. The mandate of the president to appoint a member of the Electoral Commission would clearly give anybody who would want to oppose the president that sense that the president is not being neutral and the person being appointed is not a neutral person. Why? Because the appointing authority is the one who is doing the appointment. But that has been the case. So for me, I don't think that this issue of neutrality will come in. And I expect that once he's been appointed, he's a professional person. I've read about him and I've cross-checked his background. He's a professional person. He's competent. And clearly he can discharge his work. And he's going to, for me, be a very neutral person. I think that is where the argument should be. But this issue of people trying to, crowd this whole conversation along the lines of partisan nature is quite unfortunate.
Yeah, I
Again,
mean,
he's not a test complete.
let me ask
never
you.
been a test complete.
Let me ask you, because of the clarity you've brought to this, knowing what you now know, and the fact that you've made the point that, I mean, I'll go with what you said, because for the sake of argument, that at one point the TESCOM, members found the need to get him in, and the records are there to show his activism in the party in the region. I asked you this because obviously you've been on the other side as in opposition before. If John Mahama Say had made an appointment like this, and you had found the things you know now as a national organizer, or had come up, do you sincerely would say that you wouldn't have any questions to raise about that appointment when he's going to the Electoral Commission a year before a major elections, if you were in opposition?
Oh, they are entitled to these comments, and nobody is begrudging them, and they are entitled to make these comments. All that I'm trying to say is I'm trying to lay the facts bare. Yes, if I were in opposition and if the appointing authority is the former President Mahama, obviously you raise questions. I mean, when Madam Charlotte Osei was appointed, some of us raised one or two issues, I recall. So you raise questions, but the fact remains that is the person qualified? Is the person's appointment an illegality? Is it against the Constitution? Does the person satisfy the qualification criteria? If that is the case, yes, you can make any other auxiliary points. But the fact of the matter is that the person is qualified and the person can discharge his duties without fear or favor. And I expect the person to be neutral. Look, we have had instances where some justices of the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, way before, we have had Supreme Court justices who have been parliamentary candidates for political parties before, and they are yet appointed, and then they come into and then discharge their duties without fear or favor. We have had so. I recall recently, I mean, the General Secretary for Ghana Medical Association also recently resigned, and then he is contesting to be on the NDC's ticket. Let me be frank. Anytime I listen to him, you would have this sense that you are listening to somebody who is very fair, neutral, and who is fighting for a cause. You can never take that thing away from the former General Secretary of Ghana Medical Association. Now, he resigns and he's contesting on the ticket of the NDC. So, because he's contesting on the ticket of the NDC, all the good things that he said, or how he's performed his duties out of that element of neutrality, then today I can come onto your set and say that I take everything out, or whatever I hold. I have him in high esteem. So all the things that I've said about him, because now he's contesting on NDC ticket, I've wiped everything off. That is not the case. All of us, one way or the other, will have that kind of affiliation here or there. But the most important thing is that the person qualified. Yeah. That is the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
so you raised an important point.
I am also very
just briefly, and this is just to make the point, to put in the bigger context. You make the point. We've had this in the past, and keeping them honest. Gabriel Scott-Parman, for example, was appointed to the Supreme Court. We know before that he was the General Secretary of the PNC, right? I think John Mahama did the appointment in 2015. So, I mean, just to track that history. But the final question to you before I bring in Asante, to the bigger question, Nana Boakye, does the previous known political affiliation of a person matter in an appointment to the Electoral Commission, considering that they are to be referees in an election? Does that matter?
I don't know the level, but you can certainly not appoint Nana B. If the president appointed Nana B as a member of the Electoral Commission, obviously I would even decline accepting that. It's not for me. I would be very, very, very frank. As a national youth organizer, I've mentioned, people may try to say that he has some affiliation because maybe he knows this person And then I think I saw even a poster where people had also put his name out as seeking to be regional minister. So because of that, people would create that sort of inference. But for me, I think the level of affiliation is key. My level as national organizer, practically, yes, I may qualify, but it would not be proper for you to appoint Nana B as a member of the Electoral Commission. But for me, I sort of find it very difficult to determine where it is, although maybe you can pinpoint and say that he has a little bit of affiliation. But look, the fact of the matter is that I'd rather place his qualification, I'd rather place, his competence far above this marginal affiliation that you have actually created. But if it were to be Nana B, then obviously it's so clear, it's glaring, and then you cannot just put this person out as a member of the Electoral Commission.
Okay. Dr. Asante, what's your take on this?
Very interesting conversation. Good evening to Evans and then my co-panelists and viewers. It's very interesting. One, if what Nana B is saying is anything to go by, then we don't have a conversation. That the gentleman was never a TESCON patron. That is one leg of the conversation. The other was that, according to you people, your checks, that he's politically exposed person. That is the crux of the matter. If indeed he's a politically exposed person, then you cannot put such a person onto a body that is supposed to be independent and neutral. Because anything that the person does, whether that person means so well, people will read meanings into that, hey, we don't trust this person because he's tainted, he's colored, and all that. So it is for the integrity of the commission and the work that they do that framers of the Constitution and people who develop such concept for election management bodies, that you always want to have people who are neutral. Neutrals are very critical because of the work that they do. Because each party is, eyeing for power, and that if they feel that somebody is put in a certain position that creates problems for them, obviously they will voice out. It's a very tense business, and that you don't want anything to mar the process. So what we want to ascertain is that, is he a politically exposed person? That question, I think I want my brother.
Yeah, I mean, just okay. I mean, Nana B said just before you came in, he used the words marginal exposure, marginal affiliation to the MPP. Does that qualify, disqualify him based on the criteria of neutrality? If taking Nana B's own word, marginal affiliation with the party.
How marginal? That's a very difficult, term that he has used. How do you, assess, right? Because in politics, I find it very difficult to understand what he means by what marginal affiliation and all that. If you are affiliated, you are affiliated. It doesn't matter how. Sometimes you will not be on a political platform. You will not be, at the forefront, but you are behind the scenes doing a lot to support the party in its activities. Do you call it marginal simply because nobody has seen you in the campaign rally and all that? It's a very difficult one. But what we are saying that we want to jealously safeguard the Electoral Commission and its work. And that is why it is incumbent upon all the political actors to make sure that the people that we put there, they are people that the whole country accept as neutrals, so that what they do there, at the end of the day, what comes out as product of that election process will be accepted by all. Because any doubt, any misgivings, anything that raises eyebrows will compromise the system, and it creates a lot of problems. We have seen it in Africa, Latin America, and a lot of places. And that is why those who are saying they are not per se looking at the person and attacking his persona and all that. No, but they want to be sure that the person who is going to be put on this all-important body is worth his salt, and that he'll be able to deliver as required of what the laws and then the procedures and norms associated with the workings of that. That is all. It's not that people doubt his competence. There's no doubt about that. He has gone through the mill and that he's fully developed and he has what it takes to discharge his duty as an officer of the commission. No doubt about that. But we are talking about anything that will undermine the process. And that comes from what? Being partisan. And that is where the problem is.
Alex, Nana Boakye says he will place the emphasis on competence and then the constitutional criteria. Is he competent? Does he meet the constitutional criteria? Shouldn't that, in all honesty, be what we focus on?
Evans, the fact of the matter is that the defensive posture of Nana B in the first place, coupled with your opening, says the story completely. Because as Dr. Santi has indicated, it is not, you're trying to now say, oh, he's not TESCON, therefore he's not. He is politically exposed. He is known as a person who has strong leanings towards the MPP. In fact, in my opening, I didn't mention, and if I did, I stand to be corrected, I didn't mention TESCON. I went with what you had said because your opening had even given us the background, and that's why Nana B went for it.
Yeah.
I was more just interested in the fact that this is somebody who, like Bokno Asari, was known to have strong affiliations with a political party. And any way you twist it, whether you say it's marginal and you want to put a definition of marginal, it is for everybody to look at what is out there and decide, is this something we should be doing to ourselves as a country when we should be having neutrality in positions of this nature? And I'm saying it is not right. The EC has enough problems already trying to demonstrate that the actions they are taking to us as a political party are based on fair and logical processes. This is not the time to rock the boat. Are they saying there are no people in Ghana who can fit this bill other than people who have certain affiliations? What is even more interesting is that 3 people were nominated. Why is there no noise about the other 2? Why is the noise about just this particular person? So it is clear that his posture in the past is clear for all to see, not the other 2. You said it in your opening. But what it does is that people now begin to dig the other 2 even more because of what they have found on the first person. And that is unfortunate for them, because in reality, they have gone through based on competence, as you said. But when you have such an affiliation, which is so at the forefront of it, and people have to come and defend it in terms of whether or not you belong properly or you don't, or it's marginal or it's not marginal, you've already, as far as I'm concerned, failed the test as far as that goes. And I would humbly suggest to the president that that particular appointment should be withdrawn. But we all know that he's not a listening president. So we say it for the purposes of record, not that we expect him to do anything.
Nana, what do you say to that?
I think that we are shifting the goalpost a bit, and I'm happy. First of all, we've established the point that he's never been a TESCON patron. I mean, that is so clear. Secondly, you see, this affiliation for me is perceived. It's perceived. And again, when Senior Alex was talking, he brought in the issue of Bosman Asari. The same thing, it was perceived. So are we saying that now perception should be also part of the criteria? The moment that you are perceived to have an affiliation with a political party, that automatically disqualifies you from being appointed onto a certain position. Is that what we are saying? I don't think so. Look, and then again, the poster you showed, Evans.
Yeah.
From my checks, he has never applied to be regional minister. He never even loved it. I mean, that was a poster from, I think, Space FM or so, and then they had put together people they thought that could fit the bill. He had never made any application to the presidency or to the party or anybody that he wanted to be a regional minister. So for me, all of these things are perceived affiliations. And that is why I'm saying that for me, it would be improper for us to say that because this person is perceived to have an affiliation with Evans, to have an affiliation with Nana B or Alex or Mr. Asa, so that person automatically is disqualified from
even when in this case,
that is not it.
Even when in this case, you've seen the person at party events speaking, party people actually, and I said we did a reverse search. You see party people campaigning for him aggressively. Is a party event. You still say that should still not matter in the consideration.
Campaigning for him
campaigning for him to be appointed. I mean, because they were attesting to his contribution to the party in the region. Even when you see that it shows in 2021 January, and there's just all about. There's a lot of chat around that.
You saw something like that. Is what I'm saying. That Evans, all the things Evans you are saying, it appears that it's not really based on some proof or evidence. It appears that it's rather on hearsay, and the thing that
it's not. I mean, it's not. No, it's not on hearsay. I'm saying that. Remember what I said. We did a reverse. Just a second. We did a reverse search, and that will show you the chatter. Yes. The chatter, people's names, who they are, and what they were saying about him at a certain point in time. That's one. And then there are the public events, which is incontrovertible. I think you yourself have said that he had been invited to, TESCOM events. That is also known and seen. Even when you see all that, you say, well, it's okay, disregard it and let's focus on an appointment. You say that shouldn't matter. Oh, we lost him briefly. I mean, but to Mr. Asante, you see him, and Nana B confirms that. So let's use that. He's been invited to a party event. He's spoken at this party event. Then you see party activists actively campaigning for him in the reverse search results that he should be given the nod to become a regional minister, and they say because of his contribution. But then you see the actual evidence of him at the party event. Should that matter at all in the consideration? Should that disqualify him necessarily?
What you said, there are two issues you can glean from this. One is that you saw him at a party function where he was speaking, and then people
Nanabi says he was invited. He was invited to come and speak there.
I want to look at it from two perspectives. Yeah. The first one, yes, he was speaking at a function, and that people were also rooting for him for a certain position and all that. Yeah. It could be that, yes, there's a person that people want, and that they believe that, well, he can do a good job if he's appointed. But the other bit is what I am interested in, that his contribution to the party, and they are standing on that to lobby for him. What is that type of contribution? All right. If we get to know, we'll be able to do proper assessment. Because if he's contributing as, a member of the party that is politically exposed, the type of contribution will also tell us whether he's indeed a politically exposed person. All right. But my question is that, which I want to throw to Nana B, is that if this man goes through, he has gone through already.
He has gone through, yes.
If the president decide not to revoke his appointment and we maintain him, and later we have what Mr. Sigwifia and then Nana B, who are lawyers, will say the ocular proof comes out with more evidence, would you still maintain him in office? Though he's not an appointing authority. But I believe that question, Nana B will answer that for us. If it emerges that he's indeed a politically exposed person, would that change the narrative? Would there be a call to the president that he should take a second look? All that we are saying that nobody is in doubt about his qualification, his competence and all that. But we are saying that let us jealously safeguard the Electoral Commission and make it a true and true neutral body. Because the independence and the impartiality of the Electoral Commission leads to what? Democratic consolidation. It's critical that these two variables, once you want to jettison them, I'm afraid you are likely to have problems from the political actors themselves. The parties will complain, and you go for election, the slightest problem, people will not accept results, and the rest of them. Nobody wants this. So we always want to tread cautiously.
As a wrap up, Doc, let me quickly run this by you, and I'll get all of you your thoughts on this. Because MPP did complain about Charlotte, I mean, they raised similar concerns. And then when Madam Mensah was appointed, we saw the NDC raise similar concerns. And then we are having this. That is the big picture. To deal with that, there's a suggestion tonight, and this is one of it, which is that amend the constitutional provision and make all appointments to the Electoral Commission, members and commissioners, subject to parliamentary approval. Is this something that you support? And if not, which other way can we deal with this recurring problem that we see each time somebody is appointed to the commission?
What you are saying is true, because if you read the literature, there are a whole ocean of literature on this matter where people have complained over the years, depending on the party which is office and then the one in opposition. They just change polls and all that. But come to what you have said. The suggestion by John Mahama, I think, I have no doubt in my mind that it will work. It's a good thing, because the same thing like ministerial appointment where the parliament have to approve or disapprove of that appointment. It has proved to be one of the best. And this started in our things and all that. We have followed it through, and it's working for us. There are scholars who have also suggested a few of them. Professor Ajuayi in 1998 suggested something which I think is worth also looking at. That let us have civil society organizations being represented by Ghana Bar Association, Catholic Bishop Conference, Christian Council, and the rest of them. And you have one or two political appointees from the president. I think that model is also good that we can look at. South Africa has another interesting model where they appoint people from outside the country, competent people that they see that, look, they are not from the country, real neutrals, all right? So in South Africa, they appoint people from Canada, Eritrea, and then Zimbabwe and all that to form part of the Electoral Commission. If that is what we want to go, that route, I think that it can help. All that we need to be sober and let us admit that these things are worrying us. So we want to deal with the problem head on. And the Mahama suggestion for me has triggered the whole conversation. If we don't want any of one of this has served the test of time over the years where Parliament approved nomination and all that, and we are out for it.
Let me get Nanabi. So, I mean, clearly, NPP, you've also had issues in the past. If you're looking at the big picture, what would you recommend so that the next time maybe you happen to be in opposition, you won't have a basis to complain anymore because possibly you left a certain architecture that makes it impossible for these concerns to even come up in the first. So what recommendation would you put forth, as we make this democracy better?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think that this is a progressive subject, and all of us can put our heads together. If, as a nation, we think that this constitution has served us so well, now we get to a point where we think that these are some of the adjustments we can make constitutionally to make our progression better. We can go that way. My problem is sometimes the messenger and then the message. I heard you say that the former president is advocating for certain addition, especially in terms of the layers of approvals, that whilst the president appoints, then he would rather prefer that it also receives parliamentary approval. As sometimes I get a bit amazed. And you see, the president lacks that credibility to be proposing these things, the former president. He's been president before. I recall when he recently mentioned that he was going to scrap ex gratia. This is somebody who promised